This week's episode is brought to you by Rackspace. Did you know that Rackspace can help guide your migration to Amazon Web Services? Rackspace support for AWS offers tooling and automation for account management, security, and best practices. Learn more at rackspace.com/yourcloud.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, June 8th, 2017, it's This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Jeremy, your host this week. Bear with me. Kishore Hari is out sick today, taking care of a youngin', and Norman Chen, as you know, is still honeymooning throughout Europe. Woohoo! But today, we are honored to have our first ever visit by Gunther Kirsch.
It's good to be here.
Gunther is a cameraman, editor, predator?
I'm not a predator,
All
video producer.
All of the above. Wow, man. Here at Tested, it's a video term. The editor producers, they call themselves predators.
Oh, this is news to me.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Well, that's what we did back at Future Studios.
I'll get that on my business.
Yeah, right.
It's a British thing.
Gunther has been shooting a lot of videos that you've probably watched and appreciated, so he's behind them. And guest for what, fourth, fifth time?
I don't know.
On the show? Patrick Norton,
Never
ladies
enough.
and gentlemen, host of Tech Thing.
And AVXL.
Yes. So we have Apple news today, but we're gonna wait. We're gonna put that last because some of our viewers, watchers, listeners, I don't know about you guys, but they don't all appreciate the Apple news. So we're gonna segregate that. We're gonna put it at the back of the show. We'll cover everything else, and then we'll get there. So let's dive right in because we do have quite a bit to cover.
And suddenly it was the 80s.
We embrace the 80s.
As well you should.
On This Is Only a Test, and at my house in general. Wonder Woman, kids, have you seen it?
No.
Mm-mm.
No? All right. We might wait to talk about this till next week because I'm kind of meh on it, which is against the grain. I don't know if you guys have seen, but
I've heard it's got great reviews.
the movie got great reviews, like 90s Rotten Tomatoes. And, and I really liked the character from Batman vs. Superman.
Are you a Wonder Woman fan? Have you been reading Wonder Woman comics on and off for your life?
No, is that a requirement to appreciate the
No.
Wonder Woman movie?
But I think it's, there's a degree of fandom.
Yeah. Well, and I think people are really pining for a good DC movie.
As well they should.
It's been a while. But, let's hold off on that because I need somebody to balance me out, to maybe even help me appreciate the movie a little bit more. So, and Kishore and Norm are going to have things to say. I know Norm, for one, loved it because he actually tweeted about it on his honeymoon. Go figure that he found a time to watch it. So, some other pop culture news. There is an Academy Award nominee, which is breaking new ground because it is a video game trailer. Up for an Academy Award. Have you guys seen the trailer for Everything?
No.
It's a 10-minute trailer. It's quite interesting. It's
odd to see all those awards at the bottom of the trailer screen there.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting game where you can become anything in the world, and you warp into that. I haven't played it, but from what I understand, this is how it works. And you warp into that thing, and you can move throughout space. And it's the kind of game that starts out, and you're like, okay, I think I get it, but then it makes you cry. Like there's a transition that happens. So the game itself is supposed to be fantastic. It's interesting that even the trailer for it is now nominated for an Academy Award. It's narrated by Alan Watts, the British philosopher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or part of me thinks if you take any video and put Alan Watts on top of it, you get a few points.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's worth watching. It's definitely Google that trailer.
In a formal statement, this is the IGN article, the jury stated that the Everything short goes beyond entertainment and has a, quote, strong poetic and philosophical theme. It serves a highly educational purpose, including an important political statement that encourages us to let our egos dissolve and gain a new perspective on the world.
Oh.
Wow.
That sounds like Alan Watts.
Yeah, it is pretty. I'm curious to see how this does.
Who remembers the Quake 1 game?
Yo.
Yeah?
I played it.
Were you
I
alive
was
then?
born after it.
Oh my god. That can't be. It came out in like 96.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
92.
All right.
So were you potty trained by the time it came out?
I hope so. Yeah, I think it was by that time.
Well, Quake 1, the soundtrack is famously produced by Trent Reznor,
Yeah.
and
It's good stuff.
you'll be able in the near future be able to buy it on vinyl. Now, I didn't know there was a crossover here between the audiophiles and the Quake 1 players.
I don't know if it's audiophiles or young music enthusiasts who are enraptured with vinyl, because you can walk into. I mean, vinyl's showing up in a lot of odd places these days. For example, I want to say the last like there's vinyl at Fry's. There's vinyl at. I want to say I saw it in Target.
Fry's,
recently.
the computer electronics store.
Fry's, the computer electronics store.
Wow.
Yeah, we're like, I need an EEPROM programmer, I need a couple of LEDs, a package of resistors, a washing machine, 7 pounds of beef jerky, and look, they've got vinyl over there now.
Wow.
And they do have vinyl over there now. It's like, it's like 180, milligram, 180 gram, audiophile editions and stuff. It's a thing now. If you're not out there collecting vinyl on the weekends.
I mean, I would get this for the cover art. It's Quake. Quake was my jam. I actually
Quake was everybody's jam back then.
No, but like I was in a clan. Like I was online. I had to leave parties in order to get to my clan matches.
Okay,
It was
you're operating at a higher level.
it was my jam, man. It was Clan Malice. Colors were like green and red, I want to say, and there were only like 6 colors to choose from. It wasn't like a crazy palette.
Not
But-
Call of Duty.
I remember going to, what was it, like Babbage's or something, to purchase the shareware disc, like the CD-ROM, in order to get this soundtrack, because you couldn't download the soundtrack. It was
Which is mostly like
only on
ambient,
disc.
spooky noise.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like Quake, like I guess the new Quake is kind of, or Doom rather, is kind of
Right.
like that.
It's not head like a hole,
Right,
But it's
exactly.
obvious, it's very Trent Reznor,
Yeah.
who's awesome.
Well, cool for them. That might be something I'll pick up, put on the wall. I don't have a record player.
Well, we've got a new opportunity for you to engage in audiophile madness.
Yeah, right. I did introduce records to my kids though. I don't know. Like you must have a record player.
I have one that I have not taken out of the box in several years. I keep trying to have that moment where I go, oh my God, vinyl is such a superior auditory experience. I'm just going to have to buy everything on vinyl. But my problem is like, I'm old enough to remember when vinyl was the only option.
Yeah.
And then there was like, if you didn't have like your dad's reel tapes or 8 tracks. 8 tracks were always a hot mess. Although they are the 70s in a can. But I remember when vinyl was like difficult and easily scratched and a wicked ripping pain in the ass, and CDs came out and I could skip ahead, like I could do,
Yeah.
I didn't have to fast forward like tapes, and it didn't scratch like vinyl, and I never looked back.
It's the Old Guy Podcast, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I also remember this, and I think that the ease of transitioning from song to song is what sold CDs even more than the audio quality bump.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was not like everyone talked about. It sounds better, but I think everyone really liked that convenience factor.
Weren't there some tapes that had like a magnetic designation where you could skip perfectly?
No, the way that that feature worked was it looked for silence,
Right.
Oh.
and so you would skip forward and it would like listen,
Yeah.
which wore out your tape.
And in the worst case scenarios, you would hear that, and then it would be like, you'd miss like the first 10 seconds of like the drum opening or something, and then the music would start.
But I do like records for just introducing kids to audio production, because it's you can actually understand looking at it how it works.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You, like if they look at a shiny computer disc or a CD-ROM, it's beautiful, but who knows how a laser works with that thing? You can't see it.
Yeah, but you can. I mean, it's odd, but there's a lot of parallels between how a needle picks the audio up off the record and how a laser picks up the audio off a CD. It just happens to be two completely different processes.
But you have to imagine one, and
Right.
you can see the other. Like get a magnifying glass.
I mean,
you can
probably like 9,000, animated GIFs and videos of how a CD works.
Come on, let's
the
appreciate
interwebs.
holding it in your hands and actually looking at the needle and putting the needle down and hearing it when you like.
I mean, in the last month, I had to explain to my son like why he needed to put discs back in the case, and talking about like a laser shines at little tiny dots you can't even see on this. And it reads that information. Well, actually, it reflects it off of a mirror into a sensor. It reads that information, but but it was important for me for him to know that is bad for the disc.
Yes,
and happens. When he was 3, it happened because he was climbing up on the back of a chair, and he really liked the sound when he would throw the DVD and Blu-ray cases over his shoulders. And that we had a very narrow living room, so I'm in the kitchen like working on dinner, and I hear this. Thunk whap. And when I get into I get my hands washed, I get into the living room, and he's literally whipping Blu-ray and DVD cases over his shoulders into the bookshelf behind him, where they are ricocheting and then landing on the floor.
I feel like that would be more satisfying with vinyl. I'm surprised that didn't happen.
There was no vinyl in my house at that point, anywhere he could reach.
Vinyl does throw well.
Yeah, the only vinyl I have is stuff that has never been issued digitally or on CD, where I've basically bought the vinyl so I could encode it.
Yeah.
And have access to it, like a bunch of old ska albums and some punk stuff, and that's about it for me on the vinyl front.
Well, that's coming. Also coming, E3.
I'll be down there for like 4 hours.
We'll be down there.
Gunther and I will be down there all day Wednesday.
Nice.
When are you, what day?
Tuesday.
Okay.
So I'll get to see like 2 hours of the show floor.
Why 4 hours?
Because I guess it's 5 hours, right? Because the show opens at noon on Tuesday and then shuts down at 5. So,
so you're there Tuesday.
Down there for a thing, and I'm going to get a chance to run around. What are you excited about at E3 this year?
Well, we're for 2 reasons, mainly in personal interest and also the tested audience. We're basically just covering VR this year, and so that's what's on my radar. And there's a number of things that I'm interested in. I wish it sounds like Microsoft might not actually have anything to show for the Xbox.
Right.
That would be
weird.
That would be a highlight, especially because we were hearing that they wanted to release something this year. If that's being pushed back, understandable. I'm all for when it's done, but that would be something I'd be very excited about. There's some indie titles that I'm excited to see.
You're not like all about Assassin's Creed?
Call
of Duty, World War II?
I couldn't even tell you where they are with those.
I gave up on Call of Duty a while ago.
No, the major stuff. It's
Far Cry 5. No?
Far Cry 5.
I mean that's coming out on my birthday, so that's got that going for it. But yeah, that looks good. I like the theme of it's like the South, right? America South.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I could go for that.
Gran Turismo Sport looks like it's going to be obscene, like in terms of like well into the uncanny valley and maybe to the other side at this point. Like,
what do you mean uncanny valley? It's a racing game.
Yeah, I know. I'm being facetious when I say that, but it's just like have you seen? I mean, look at that.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yeah. Well, racing games have looked realistic for a while now.
I don't know.
Yeah, Forza has been great.
Maybe I'm just excited about a racing game.
Do you play games?
I play games, mostly a lot of Rocket League.
Yeah. You and Joey
Yeah,
familiar?
Joey loves it.
Simple stuff. Because like the way I always gamed kind of fell apart when I had children. Because I believe like a good 12 to 18 hour session is perfectly reasonable. That was also bad for my marriage, but that's a whole nother conversation. So VR titles you're looking forward to?
I was looking up some names. Can you talk about what games you play, Gunther?
I play first-person shooters almost exclusively, unfortunately. I wish I
wrong
could
with that?
branch out a little bit more, but
Nothing wrong
not
with
even
that.
Counter-Strike.
Really?
Like Battlefield and
Nice.
Far Cry. But that's about it. I mean, I mostly use my computer to edit, and then when I get frustrated with an edit, I'll spend a half hour to
Killing
an hour.
things.
Killing things, taking the aggression out.
So
Twitch.
Quake would have been your jam.
Yeah, totally. And I used to play it back in the day, but that and Unreal Tournament.
Quake 1?
I don't know.
Quake 3.
Probably Quake 3.
Yeah. There's a game called Drifter that I'm not sure has gotten a whole lot of press that we're going to check out. I hope we're going to check out. It's kind of a tentative thing. That looks quite good.
Is Drifter like you're wandering into towns and killing people as a stranger, or Drifter like I am in a car drifting around?
No. It's a first-person shooter.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not prepared to talk about this. That's the name of the company. The game is called Gunheart. And
I wonder what that's about.
Gun hard or hard?
Yeah,
Gunhard.
they're veterans from Gears of War 2. That looks quite good. They released a trailer, and I immediately emailed them to try to get an appointment. So we're working something out.
While we're talking about sort of VR and games, one of the things that was Penny Arcade was talking about in the last couple of weeks was the idea is Star Trek Bridge Crew, is that going to be the killer app for VR? Is that what gets a bunch of people into VR, or do we need the headsets to come down in price first?
I think we do have a VR section of the show.
I'm sorry.
No. It's all good. It's all good. We could talk about this here. I think it's still about cost. Personally, there's still $600 for the Rift.
Right.
It's a big investment.
Plus the PC.
Plus
to run
the PC.
Yeah.
I just had to buy a 1070 GPU, a $400 1070 GPU, just so I could test an 8K monitor. So now I'm now by accident I am ready for VR. So
That's a good thing.
You get to keep it.
the 8K monitor?
Yeah.
No, it's
Oh,
a $5,000 monitor. Talk about that later. It's amazing. It's completely impractical, for most people because $5,000 monitor. But
Yeah.
the more time I spend with it, the more I like 280 pixels per inch. I like Retina display resolutions on a monitor. It turns out that's really enjoyable.
Awesome. Let's talk about that and what we've been testing. I'd love to hear about that. In the meantime, let's move on to tech news. Familiar with Formlabs, 3D printer company?
Yes.
I was there.
Yes, you were there for this new announcement of the SLS printer. Now, Formlabs they made a splash on Kickstarter, I think, not too many years ago, with their SLA printer, which is a resin printer that competes with your traditional 3D printers, which are FDM, which squirt out plastic.
SLA printers suck less,
SLA printers suck less, yes.
but like an order of magnitude.
Yes, they're a little more finicky. They take more time to finish the prints, but they look magnificent. I mean, they really look professional, injection molded. I have friends that work in big companies that have the expensive printers. They love the Form too. Well, Form just announced a brand new printer using SLS technology, a third 3D printing technology. This is the big one because this is what the big leagues all use. It is a
It's a laser sinter.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a powder based.
So basically, there's a platform that powder gets sprinkled on, and then a laser sinters a pattern into that very fine layer of powder, like 2 particles thick, apparently. Then that moves down. More powder is sprinkled over. It's a little more complicated than that, but basically, more powder is sprinkled over. Another laser comes over and keeps, and that sintered object starts moving down, and then
embedded in
the dust around it.
the dust around it.
So
yeah.
that is like acts as a support system
Yeah.
for the object, and you
Oh,
can do
wow.
really crazy, complicated patterns because of that. There's no support structure.
That's-
You just kind of brush it away like a dinosaur bone.
And that's the magic, that there is no support structure needed, because in both SLA and PLA, I'm sorry, with the FDM,
FDM.
Right.
you do need support
Yep.
structures, which can cause troubles because you have to either use a dissolvable filament, which isn't always possible, or you have to clip them away, which can always then you
Screws
have
up
to
the finish a little
sand
bit.
down the
Yeah.
finish if you need to, and you can't even get inside difficult to reach areas. So this now finally I don't know if it's a consumer product.
At $10,000, probably not.
No.
Yeah, but it's
that's- yeah.
compared to the big leagues. Normally, you'd be paying 10 times that.
Yeah, 200,000.
So I have heard-
multiple millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I have heard that there is a $14,000-ish SLS printer out there. I don't know much about it,
Okay.
but there is a competitor, but they're obviously under that price point still. But yeah, like for the most part, I think it's small business oriented kind of group, maybe a maker space.
It's a way
Marcus.
out, like spring 2018, but you can put a $1,000 deposit on the Formlabs SLS printer. So it's like a Kickstarter, but without
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that now. They want that 5% back.
Yeah.
But you held the parts that printed.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
They felt good.
Yeah, they felt really good.
I mean-
It uses what I found was interesting is normally SLS printers use a white powder that you can dye and paint afterwards.
Yeah.
These printers, because they're using a different laser, they have to use a darker color that absorbs more of the light energy,
Interesting.
right? So they're working on figuring out a system to get dyes and colors.
It's a very tactical looking kind of gray,
It is.
or industrial
It
looking
is.
kind of gray, battleship gray.
Definitely.
That's cool. I mean,
Stuck with it.
this is the printer that what we want to see come down in price.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we want to see at $200 someday.
Someday, yeah.
I mean, this is the kind of thing you can just hit print. It's the support structures that kill you. Anytime I'm doing a print and it falls apart, it's because I needed supports where I didn't have them or something like that. Or the support structures themselves fail.
Yeah,
And
and
so-
the quality is good enough to be used as a final product is what they're pitching it as. too.
That's cool. Last week we talked about Amazon setting up kiosks outside 2 places in Seattle. They're experimenting with new service where you can pay to have things delivered to you. So you order them, you drive up. It's a grocery store. They walk them out to your
Oh, I didn't
car.
realize they
put
would
them in your
actually have these
trunk.
ready. I saw a commercial
2
a
of
while
them.
ago.
They have
Okay.
2 of them ready. But it's very expensive. Like apples are over $1, and like it's very expensive just for the cost of stuff. Well, Walmart is now experimenting in the same space, but there's the things don't cost more. It's but you have to. There's a $30 minimum, and if you place your order online, you buy before closing hours. You can then drive up to their automated kiosk at any hour of the day, 3 a.m. if you like. Input your code, and a robot will bring your stuff out to you. It won't put it in your trunk. But that's interesting. I mean, I think there's a market for that, don't you, Patrick?
Absolutely. Anything that allows me to not go inside the store sounds like a plus.
Yeah, nothing against Walmart.
Well, it's also Walmart's really tough in the Bay Area because there are very few, because the real estate here is so expensive. There's not a Walmart in San Francisco.
That's right.
Walmart decided, or Oakland decided to have a higher minimum wage, much like Emeryville, which is another East Bay town. So Walmart shut down the Oakland Walmart, just pulled the plug on it. So the nearest one to me is like San Leandro, and they close at midnight around there. So it's like, I think I've been into a Walmart before midnight like 3 times in my life. Like I'm always like hitting them on road trips, or where it's like 2 a.m. It's like, yes, I need an industrial sized bag of chips and 40 pounds of ice, and we're going off into the woods now. Oh wait, let's pick up a tent and some motor oil.
Yep.
I'm curious to see how it does. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would just prefer, not having to deal with like the lines inside of a Walmart, which seems to always be a nightmare, whether it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.
Yeah, it's not clear to me when you'll be able to receive it. Like, can I place the order and get it an hour later? I don't know, or do I have to wait till after closing? Yeah, you're right.
They're also competing against Amazon with their automated delivery service, which has a similar $30 limit, I believe.
Automated delivery? You mean like same day
Well,
delivery?
sorry, not automated, but yeah, same day. Amazon Instant? Is that what it's called?
Prime Now.
Prime Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's the...
And I think that's
Bigger
partially because
competitor.
Walmart wants to stay a step ahead of Amazon, because Amazon's starting to do the brick and mortar stores. It's interesting, the idea that all of a sudden like Amazon and Walmart are going to be at each other's throats even more than they already are. I mean, it's also interesting. Amazon's finally moving into Australia, which is the logistical nightmare.
What, Amazon's not in Australia?
Amazon.
Why's that?
Well, have you? So if you look at a map of Australia, it's about the size of the continental United States, except it has 1/3 fewer people than the state of California. So imagine like you got 24 million people in an area the size of the continental United States, except they're all around the edges. And so you're talking about like, hundreds and thousands of miles between locations. So where do you put a warehouse? How many warehouses do you put? You also have to ship stuff to Australia, which is cheaper from China, but more expensive from the United. You know what I mean? Like it's just from a purely like, how do I get stuff to people? Australia's tough because it's basically empty in the middle. No disrespect to anyone living in the middle of Australia, watching or listening to the podcast.
Spiders.
Spiders. But you know what I mean? Like imagine if there were, imagine if everybody in the United States lived in like, Detroit, Washington, San Francisco, LA, New Orleans, Orlando, and DC and New York City, and then you had to drive the 3,000 miles in between.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like, I mean, think about that from a standard, like where do you put the warehouse, and how do I efficiently move things around, and am I going to lose all of my profit, in shipping all of this stuff, or am I going to lose all of my customers because I have to charge a giant pile of money to move all this stuff around?
But they're making the move?
Making the move. So, I have no idea if there's Walmart in Australia. I do know there's Walmart in China. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm very curious.
Does the name Palmer Luckey mean anything to you guys?
Yes. Yes, it does.
No.
Really? He was the founder of Oculus. He was the one who brought the duct taped initial headset, to John Carmack. Maybe John Carmack applied the duct tape. I don't know, but he's the one who brought the lenses, the concept to John Carmack. They made that initial Doom BFG demo at E3 so many years ago that led to the Kickstarter, that led to Oculus, that led to Facebook acquiring them, that led to this VR revolution. He also used to work at Oculus until he became known as a funder of, what was the name of that group? It was what they called a shit-posting campaign in favor of Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton in the last election. And so he was subsequently maligned, and he was not allowed to come out publicly and speak or anything at Oculus. And later, he left the company. Well, he's back. And he is back in force with his new company that not only has now donated, and more power to him, he's now donated $100,000 to Donald Trump's campaign. And he has offered
to the inaugural campaign.
To the inaugural campaign, thank you. And he has offered to solve the problem of the border wall, which he wants to solve with LiDAR. So he wants to create a more cost-efficient radar, LiDAR equivalent wall surveillance system that could potentially monitor entire country borders and base, borders of military bases. Mm-hmm. So he wants to be a military contractor. And he says that the current systems cost, $90,000.
Right.
The challenge is to bring the cost down.
I mean, politics aside, that sounds like a smarter approach.
Exactly. I mean, actually, politics aside, this sounds like a pretty great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, especially I'm sure he has the connections and the mind to do a project like this. I could even see on a consumer level how this could be useful for
home security. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or even fencing your animals in and tracking them. I don't know. But he's back. He had been radio silent for the longest time. Now he's back.
I'm kind of curious to see how this actually ends up working in the real world. I mean, LiDAR is fascinating.
Yeah.
The whole light detection and ranging. We're doing sensors. We've got pulsed lasers. I'm just very curious to see how it works in the real world because it seems complicated. Yeah. And
self-driving cars are kind of implementing that technology too, right?
True, but I don't know. And who knows? Maybe I'm deluding myself that with the idea of differentiating between coyotes, the small furry creatures, and cows, and coyotes, the people escorting people over the border, and people trying to sneak into the country is more difficult than detecting traffic. But it seems like it seems like an awful lot of space to cover with any technology. It doesn't seem like I don't know.
It's going to require a lot of people to monitor those feeds.
Well,
every time a coyote pops up.
But maybe you do that by maybe you use artificial intelligence and automated systems, and then you only bring somebody online when something if some alarm gets tripped. Okay, we have people shapes or we have heat signatures or whatever's going on. I'm very curious to see what it actually ends up being and what the cost ends up being.
And the other thing is that optical image I don't know what the word is, but understanding what the computer understanding what it's seeing purely using optical imaging is advancing at light speed as well. And Elon Musk has said numerous times that that's the future. Mm-hmm. That once you crack just understanding your environment optically, you can read every road sign, you can see the roads, you can see people, other cars, you can discern everything that you need to see, which is more or less how people do it. And that LiDAR is an unnecessary crutch that we're using in the meantime.
Right. Aren't Tesla cars outfitted with actual cameras right now? And
Many.
they're still working on getting those fully functional with
That's
the
right.
firmware update?
That's right, yeah. They're shipping all the cars so that every car, you can buy it in this configuration, which is fully autonomous ready. But they haven't shipped that firmware yet. I don't think they plan to for some time, maybe within a year.
Right.
The Mars 2020 rover looks super cool. You got to Google it.
I saw that.
It looks looks like out of Aliens or something. I mean, it's so rad. Unfortunately, it's not a real rover.
I was about to say.
But it is NASA designed. They did make it. They made it to promote an event called the Summer of Mars.
Yeah.
The Mars 2020 rover, and they did build it with some knowledge about what a rover would need to do. It's made to drill into the Martian surface and look for signs of previous life.
It's pretty crazy. It's like 28 feet. It looks like something you'd see at the SEMA show, or promoting a video game.
Outlander.
Yeah.
You remember that tank you could program with the keypad on the back?
Yes.
what was that called?
Not a clue.
You know what I'm talking about? 80s,
Yeah.
late 70s, and it would do your movements. It looks like that.
Space 1999.
I want one.
A 28-foot long Mars rover. Just the thing for commuting in San Francisco.
No one's gonna mess with me.
All the Hummers ran away from him.
Well, speaking of Mars, speaking of space, SpaceX has relaunched a Dragon capsule for the first time. Woohoo! They had launched a rocket already, relaunched a rocket already. So they'd covered that ground, but now they have relaunched the Dragon capsule, which is the capsule that sits atop the rocket, and it has the payload. This Dragon capsule was successfully launched, and it has now reached the International Space Station, where it is docked.
It's so awesome.
We'll be there for 1 week.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly. Get those costs down. That's how we're all going to get to Mars, people.
I'm almost excited about being able to travel into space before I die. Like, I'm almost thinking it might actually be a possibility.
How much would you pay for that privilege?
It's not how much would I pay, it's how much could I pay, and
Yeah.
a lot less than it's going to cost, at least for the next decade.
Do you actually imagine that this is a possibility?
I've had a friend of mine who's been, absolutely. Sorry, I was about to say batshit, and then I'm like, you can't say batshit. But then I'm like, it's a tested podcast,
No, you
so I
can.
can say
You can
batshit.
say batshit.
A friend of mine has been batshit crazy, over the wall, excited, like starting to. He's as soon as like SpaceX started, and he was like, oh my god, somebody's gonna do this, and was already started like saving his money. And I've been like, yeah, I'll check back with me in 5 years, and it's to the point where it's actually it's real. I like it's really kind of amazing.
That Elon Musk has a history of making big claims and then following through on them.
Yeah,
And that's the scary. Like that's when you start.
I would still like to
take it
see
seriously.
Tesla be a profitable automotive company.
Well, yeah. I mean, give it a year. I think the Model 3 it could be that turning point.
They have to make the model. They also need to not have the kind of repair and warranty issues they have with with the current Teslas.
Yeah.
They can't scale. They can't spend as much money as they are repairing things under warranty and be successful in the long run. So yeah, I really want them to succeed. But I think I want affordable space travel to succeed somewhat more.
It would be fun even just to experience that vicariously. I mean, even if we couldn't go, honestly, I would love that. I would tune into that show. Like that would be on my TV all the
NASA
time.
should get some 360 cameras up there, do VR.
Sure. I mean, I would. That would be the most amazing experience, just as humanity, to watch that happen. So I'm all for it. I do hope we see that within our lifetime. I know that Elon
think we
Musk
will.
wants to see it in his lifetime.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of the man and his shower thoughts, there was a shareholder meeting for Tesla, his other company, and we got our first look at the Model Y. So this is another SUV on top of the Model X, but it's on all original design that they plan to ship in 2 years. I want to say it's 2018, and we saw the top of the car. Yeah, it looks like a Tesla. I mean, you can sort of see it. I'm not particularly excited about it because I know it's going to be crazy expensive, but it's So that's great that they're planning that, and it's going to be an entirely new ground up design. So they built the Model X on top of the Model S. Elon's now calling that a mistake.
Right.
He said they ran into so many problems, compatibility. They had to shoehorn an SUV into a sedan and a sedan into an SUV, and it made
Right.
it difficult on both fronts.
I also noticed I should say that we kept the initial configurations of the Model 3 very simple. A big mistake we made with the X, which was primarily my responsibility. There was way too much complexity right at the beginning. That was very foolish. So they're trying to keep it as simple as possible, which is a big deal.
The 3, they are on course to ship at the end of next month.
Wow.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's fantastic. They're actually going to have them coming off the production line into owners' hands next month. I did not expect to see that until the end of the year, frankly.
Do you guys know anyone who's getting one?
Well, Norm and I are both on the pre-order list,
Oh.
so I don't know if we're going to follow through. If it comes out that early, I'm not, because I'm perfectly happy with the Volt. I expected this to take years, and by that time, maybe I'd be ready to.
What's the
trade
pricing
in.
on the Model 3 now?
Well, it's $30,000 after federal rebates.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So there is no final price announced, but that's the target.
That's the target.
So that would be 37,500, right? I
The
would
Volt's
guess.
fun to drive.
The Volt or the Bolt?
The Volt.
But
I have not driven a Bolt.
I have
the Volt
a Bolt.
is fun to drive.
Yeah, they're both fun to drive.
Yeah.
They both have some pep. But in any case, those Model 3 owners, those first ones rolling off the assembly line, will have two choices to make about their car. And this is another part of his strategy to get things right the first time. Don't offer every option out of the gate. You're going to be able to choose wheel size and color. That's it. And the wheel size only differs by 1 inch, 18 and 19 inches. I'm not sure what the point is there.
Yeah, what's the point?
I don't know. And I don't know exactly what colors will be available, but you won't have any, as far as I know. According to them, there'll be no other options. You can't choose. There'll be no two-motor version. Eventually there will be an all-wheel drive model.
Right.
There will not be a option for a panoramic roof. I think that's all going to be hardtop at the beginning.
That seems smart.
And who knows about the options interior? I don't know if they'll be required to have the full autonomous driving option or not, because that is supposed to be an option at launch. So I don't know if that they're considering that a subcategory of options, or if that will just be on every one of them. But that would be awesome. I mean, as a company that is pushing autonomous driving, that would be great if that just was the standard.
Right.
It'd be amazing.
Especially for a company that's had so many warranty recalls.
Yeah.
Just have the car drive back to the factory.
Hopefully after it drops you off at home.
They also said that their fully autonomous tech is now finally up to par with the technology that they had been licensing up until the tragic mishap last year where somebody was killed in the auto accident, and they had a breakup with their AI, with their visualization company. So now their own internal tech is on par with that, and they're, wow, proceeding. So
I'm really curious to see what
exciting.
happens like with the Model Y, because they're moving away from 12-volt packs just to simplify the amount of wiring. You know, I would still love to see what the inside of the Gigafactory looks like right now, and how fast they're going to be coming on with additional modules on that. When I say modules, I mean like, you know, giant industrial warehouse, you know, manufacturing spaces, you know,
So
just east of Reno.
the current batteries are series 12-volt batteries? Is that what you said?
I believe so.
Wow. Did not know that. I thought they were all just like a...
I think they're wired
nickel.
together to create 12-volt subunits.
Interesting. Yeah, my Bolt has the 400-volt battery, but then it also has a 12-volt battery, just standard 12-volt battery in the front.
To start the engine.
No, it doesn't need to start the engine. There's no starter for it.
What's it there for?
There's no internal combustion engine at all.
I thought the
Bolt
No,
is
he's got
fully
the
electric.
Bolt.
Oh, I thought you. I'm sorry. I thought you had the Volt,
Nope.
not the Bolt.
I know why they did that. It's still beyond me. I have no idea.
It may just be simpler to have the 12-volt for a bunch of the accessories.
That's
than
exactly
it. Is
it.
To do a step-down transformer from the battery pack in there.
That's-
Plus, you want the
that's
ability
insane.
to operate. If for some reason the battery pack fails, you still want the ability to do things like have the hazard lights on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, makes sense to me. But
I think you're right. It's for all those other components, but it surprises me that that there's not a step-down converter involved. Anyway, what else we got here? This is cool. I just found this article today on Engadget. Google is using games to teach kids about online safety. It's called Interland.
Really?
Yeah. Okay? So the URL is kind of weird. It's beinternetawesome.withgoogle.com, and it's thank God, because I don't know why Cliffy B comes to mind, but I remember reading about the internet and children ages ago, and Cliffy was like, you just got to teach them to deal with the matrix. You can't shelter these kids from the internet. You just have to teach them how to exist on it. And that stuck with me. I was like, yes, that's it. And so that, I can't say that I have managed to do that with my two kids, but that's the goal. and this, this is the right approach. So, phooey. Where'd my link go?
Yeah, it says it's designed to teach them about phishing, malware, and fake news.
Yes. So
And is it a video game?
yeah, well, there's three different things. Kind Kingdom educates children on trolling and being nice on the internet, while Mindful Mountain highlights how important it is to share information only with people that you trust. Reality River presents 10 multiple choice questions that help identify who and what to trust online. This is great, and apparently the games are actually fun. There's videos that you can watch as a family. The aesthetic is good. It looks like Monument Valley. And this is fantastic. I will be checking this out with my kids, and if you have kids,
Be internetawesome.withgoogle.com, and they have a curriculum you can download and read before you let the kids near the game. So
finally, Glowforge has finally announced their ship schedule. They are, as we mentioned last week, the shipments are underway for this they call it a laser printer initially, but it is a laser cutter. And that's good news. The bad news is they won't have them all shipped until November 30th. So if you ordered one real early last year, say before October 26th, 2 years ago, if you ordered before October 26, 2015, you will have yours by October 31st of this year.
Man.
It's possible you get it earlier because they are shipping them now, but the fact that they're shipping is a very good thing, and with any luck, this will be the last delay. I know Norm and I are anxious to get ours at home and start making things.
So there's a bunch of Glowforges that are out there. Are those just the very first ones that were shipped, and they're just finally catching up on the? I mean, the Kickstarter was huge.
It wasn't a Kickstarter. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was like everything else nowadays, which is like homegrown Kickstarter.
Okay.
But yeah,
Pre-order?
Yep.
The pre-orders.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it was. It was huge. It was over $10 million, I think.
Wow.
No,
But-
it's like 27 million.
Which is over 10 million.
27,907,000. It's significantly over 10 million. It wasn't like 11 million. You know, it's 2.7 times more than 10 million. But yeah, I get your point.
We have one here, and
That's
it's-
what I thought.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a ton though. I don't think there's a ton out there.
Okay.
But there are several, and ours has been rock solid. So, and apparently the firmware update is improving fidelity, and it's a great thing. I just think a lot of people have been frustrated with the length of time it's taken to ship
Sure.
these things. They were supposed to come out over a year ago. So
I mean, it happens with with Kickstarter projects where it just takes
Yeah.
forever.
and as long as they get here, I'm okay with that.
We had one with some sort of magnetic blocks that made kind of like geometric atom-like shapes, and the Kickstarter, you know, the guy did the Kickstarter. This was a Kickstarter, not a DIY one. He had committed a bunch of money to a guy to build a machine to automate the manufacturing of these, and so about a third of the Kickstarter funds went to this guy, who eventually said, "No, I can't do it. Thanks for the money," and disappears again. Right?
Oh my God.
So the guy basically hand manufactures 25,000-30,000 of these. So we finally got ours, I think, about a year after we expected to get them. You know, like I thought we were going to have them for like Christmas 2015,
Yeah.
and I gave them to my wife February this year. And he was being amazing. He was honoring his Kickstarter obligations. They're building these things, and I think he was down to the last couple thousand, and he passed, I guess, of old age.
What do you do?
The family, there was a person, there was a person working with him. And the family is committed to finish, in his honor, to finish all of the orders.
Wow.
But it's, which is so much better than some of the Kickstarters where people have, either faked what they could do or, completely underestimated, what it takes to build things in the real world at scale, which is nice because Kickstarters finally recognize that is a problem for them and a reputational issue, and that they are now working. They have sort of a whole organization inside of Kickstarter to help people, understand what it takes to actually make things in the real world,
But not help them make it.
I think they're, building relationships and
Are they?
teaching technology and stuff like that, or being like, I think they're sort of bridging. So maybe you don't have to spend 6 months trying to find somebody in China. Maybe you take 6 weeks finding somebody in China to build something for you.
That
or
would be
something.
amazing.
Because it's pretty crazy to look at. I mean, and there's groups that are incredibly experienced. Like the OSIC 3D headphones that I finally did a pre-order on. They're going to ship, I think, in August now. So, and that's the group running that Kickstarter basically ran all of the audio stuff for Logitech for a decade. So this is an incredibly experienced group, and they're still shipping months after they expected to.
Yeah.
So,
Well, when I did a Kickstarter a couple of years ago, and I thought this is an industry waiting to happen, which is that middleman between accidentally successful Kickstarters
right,
and actual people who can bring them to reality
right.
at scale. So I'm glad to hear that Kickstarter's got that internally, at least to some degree. All right, are you guys ready to talk about Apple?
Sure.
Let's do it.
We got some more to talk about after Apple, but let's do it. So WWDC happened, and it opened with what can only be considered a thinly veiled threat to the world, which is a video they entitled Apocalypse. Did you watch this?
Nope.
So Apple new hire shows up at an old campus, and because of constraints moving to the new campus, there's not a nice office space for him. So they put him in the server room at an empty desk. He sits down. He plugs in. He goes to plug in his water fountain, listening to music on his original iPod. There's no plug available, so he unplugs one of the servers. I mean, he didn't know it was a server. It was a plug in the wall, and he plugs in his water fountain, and that creates a cascading effect. All the servers shut down and cut to everyone in the world starting to lose their app functionality, and then all of their apps start to disappear from the screen. Everyone's Skype video sessions are shutting down everywhere. Instant messages are shutting down. Nothing works. And the whole world falls into disarray. And it becomes the Middle Ages all over again, where you assume days later, people are now wandering the streets, finding themselves useless because they can't engage with their technology anymore. And there are people playing Farmville, and you can play Farmville at their little section of the alley.
Like an arcade.
With real barn animals. Or you can call a Lyft, which is a horse and buggy. Or you can do Tinder, which is like just modeling for people. And it's just all there, but now it's real life. And it looks terrifying. I'm not sure what they were thinking.
What was the point?
Well, I think the point...
to demonstrate that you can be profoundly tone deaf in one of the most observed events by one of the most sensitive communities online and in meat space.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But Tim came out and said that can't actually happen. So that was reassuring. Still, thinly veiled threat, I tell you. They announced they have 16 million registered developers, which to me just told me that they make $1.6 billion off annual fees from those developers.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And that's assuming no one does their $300 enterprise level. Wow. They had 6 major announcements. They were TV OS, the Mac.
Well, they're going to talk about tvOS later this year. They just confirmed the rumors that were out this summer, which is that Amazon Prime is finally going to be on the Apple TV.
That was it. That was the all-of-one announcement.
And we'll talk more about it later. So maybe it'll be 4K, maybe it'll be an update.
Exactly. They did say a lot more later this year on the Apple TV, on the tvOS front. And I'm surprised that there wasn't a 4K Apple TV this time. I know there aren't any rumors about it, but I'm just surprised that's not a thing yet, because the current Apple TV is getting a little long.
Well, they have to have 4K content. And they don't feel there's a demand for 4K content. And it's Apple. They know everybody with an Apple TV that has a 4K TV will buy an Apple TV, so they'll just take their own sweet time releasing it.
I suppose. But there is the content. They just have to put it on their movie app, right?
Yeah. Well, or do they have to renegotiate any of their contracts? Yeah. What's going to be the physical delivery? Do they want to deal with the expense of delivering 4K?
Right.
I mean, I realize bandwidth is free, but 4K videos are still a lot more demanding.
Honestly...
Okay, maybe they're not that much more demanding, but
no. I'm sure that it is more demanding. I just think that the actual qualitative difference between 1080p and 4K takes either a really close range to the TV or a really big TV.
Yes,
and it's kind of a diminishing returns at that point. They probably are aware of that.
Well, HDR on 4K is
That's better.
1,000 times more interesting than 4K resolution. Because somebody's like, oh, well, I need 4K. I'm like, you've got a 65-inch screen. You're 8 feet away. I have a 110-inch screen that I'm 8 feet away from, and I'm watching 1080p. And I've never thought to myself, gosh, that's really pixelated. I've been like, gosh, Netflix sucks tonight because Comcast is jerking my chain. But
HDR is much more impressive.
HDR is much more impressive.
Yeah. The watch got an update. No new watches, but there's a new watch face. You can put Woody and Jesse and Buzz. You know those guys?
Nope.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. Toy Story.
I smell crossover.
That came out the same year Quake did. No, a year before. So you were a baby.
Yeah. Oh,
All right.
Toy Story. I loved it. Yeah.
Yes. So that's exciting. If you're tired of Mickey and Minnie, you now get three new characters. They're upping the exercise stuff a little bit. That you can do monthly challenges. Blah blah blah. There's a new music app. There's a weird thing. There's a flashlight function coming to the watch. Not sure how that works.
Bright screen.
Makes me wonder. I mean, that's probably it.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder. Is that just like the next generation's going to have a camera, and so they're just enabling that functionality
a little selfie
now.
watch.
Yeah, or like a FaceTime kind of experience. I don't know.
We were trying to figure out how we can really reduce the battery life on the Apple Watch, and we've come up with a way to minimize battery life for everyone. Sorry, was that snarky?
The Apple Watch battery is pretty great. Do you have one?
I have one.
And
I
it's not
haven't
great
had
for
it. I it was so useless for so long.
Yeah.
I stopped wearing it, and I keep trying to get excited about it again. So I will, in your honor, I will try. I will tomorrow. I will put on the Apple Watch, and I will try to find something I care about enough to wear it between now and the next time I'm on Tested, and we will talk.
It's just text messages, man. I don't do anything but get text messages.
You know, I just don't need to wear a watch to get text messages.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I still haven't gotten over the fact that people look at their wrists all the time, and I'm like, do you have somewhere to go?
I know. Yeah, that's that's a problem. They had some updates to Mac. The big one is the new iMac Pro, which won't be out until later this year. But this is what everyone's excited about. It starts at $5,000, and it's the most powerful Mac they've ever made.
Right.
Now, I assume that we're still getting a proper Mac Pro next year, which would be an update to the trash can.
Yeah, see, that's what I was confused about. Are they ditching the Mac Pro and it's just iMac Pro
I
now?
don't like that. That was my fear, but because they said earlier this year that there will be a Mac Pro next year,
Right.
and the iMac Pro comes out this year,
Gotcha.
I'm assuming that that's still going to be the case. So this, for this year, this will be the most powerful Mac, and next year we'll see some proper thing.
Maybe. I mean, this is coming out in December of this year.
Right.
Which means they're probably not going to really start moving them out in scale until Q1 2017. It's, it's on one hand, yes, $5,000 sounds insane, right? But you're talking about a 5K monitor, and $5,000 is the entry level price, right? So that's
Right.
the 8-core, Xeon powered 32 gigabyte 5K monitor version with a 10 gigabit Ethernet card. You can also, you can max it out with an 18-core Xeon processor, 128 gigabytes of, ECC RAM.
And then at that point,
Vega
it's
GPUs.
10K?
Up to 16 gigabytes on that GPU.
Yeah. I haven't priced out the max price because at some point it's just like, you can buy a new car or you can buy the new iMac. And on one hand, I have friends that will upgrade, their processors, every 6 to 12 months. I had a friend of mine who was updating SSDs like every 8 months at one point because of the type of work he does. A modest boost in drive performance meant saving, 15, 20 minutes a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if it saves you 15, 20 minutes twice a day because you're doing some monster thing, that adds up huge, right? You're doing video editing. Like when I went to the AMD Ryzen 1800X, it halved the amount of time it took me to render shows. That's huge, and plus you have all this power on tap for doing video editing and stuff like that. So if you're in one of those spaces where you're doing crazy, 3D, or engineering or development or you're an architect, you're a crazy Photoshop person, these are really compelling. And that monitor itself is probably, that's easily right there, probably $1,500, $2,000 if you were building a system by yourself. I think Xeon processors are overkill for most every application except for a small subset, but it gives them this really huge differentiation between the pros and the standard iMacs.
Yeah. They claim that a comparable system today would cost $7,000. So Apple,
I don't know about that.
Apple undercutting the competition on price.
That's a wonderful story. I
Yeah,
haven't
I don't know about that.
manually priced out. I haven't manually priced out everything. $4,999 buys you a 27-inch 5K display with 500 nits brightness, an 8-core Intel Xeon CPU, 32 gigs of 2666 DDR4 ECC RAM, a terabyte SSD. AMD Radeon Pro Vega 56 GPU with 8 gig of HBM2, 10 gigabits Ethernet, 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and 4 USB 3 ports.
Quick question about the 10 gigabit Ethernet.
I'm so excited for that. That's like
10
my
gig?
most.
Yeah, so is that basically what's replacing fiber?
No, replacing fiber. So it's a 10 gig connection. You
Yeah.
can use. I'm pretty sure it's just like an RJ connector.
It looks like a standard RJ11 connector.
Yeah.
It's just a better shielded Ethernet cable.
I'm not sure exactly, but a lot of NASs or NASs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, I say NAS.
They're coming out with 10 gig connections, and you can edit off of your NASs,
Yeah.
which makes managing data a lot easier.
Is that the new high quality standard in office buildings?
Not standard,
10
but
gigabit?
it will be.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say it's 6A, which is a heavily shielded. Mostly, it's a heavily shielded connector and a heavily shielded cable. for 10 gigabit Ethernet. Yeah, I mean, this is a thing where, you're in a production house and you're moving terabytes of video every day. You're going to roll out 10 gigabit video. Like, in terms of consumer users, not so much.
No, but at Future Studios, when I was working on the PlayStation product, the video team connected all to a local area network. I guess it was like a NAS, but it was like a industrial one. But they all used optical connections.
Right.
Like at the time, those were fast.
Yep.
Yes.
This is the new hotness.
It's cheaper to pull copper than it is to pull fiber. I mean, I think it comes down to that because 10 gigabit can be run over fiber or copper. I think in a lot of cases, like it's going to be. I believe I have not priced it out myself, but pulling like 6A or 7, category 6A or 7 Ethernet is going to be less expensive than pulling fiber.
Interesting.
So,
there are a couple interesting things going on the Mac front. There's in Safari now there will be an autoplay blocking feature, which I think is great because that bugs the hell out of me. Probably not a big deal to Chrome users. I think there must be probably 10 extensions that do the same thing. But it was funny. It seemed like that's like a gotcha Google kind of move on Apple's part.
it's a pretty bold move for Apple, I think.
Yeah.
How so? Blocking ad revenue or
just I mean, it's one of those things where it's going to be very popular with your user base because I literally. Every other day, like every 3 days, maybe a half dozen times in the last 2 weeks, I've loaded up an article on CNET and an almost entirely semi-related video rolls in the corner in a little tiny like QSIF 320 by 240 looking size. And
obnoxious.
It's obnoxious, and it almost invariably has very little or almost nothing to do with what I'm actually there to read about. It's not auto playing the video that's related to the article I'm looking at. And the only reason to do that is to get revenue. And it's disrespectful to the consumer. It means, you can pay a little extra freight for this article. And I understand from a business standpoint where they're scrapping for every penny they can get off of every page. I understand why they're doing that, right? It's a free
Makes
ad
sense,
roll for them, right? But it's, to suddenly have this audio going up in the back of my thing or to have to turn autoplay off, in case, God forbid, I leave that window open, and it's rolling through videos for the next 12 hours. That's great for CNET's bottom line, but it's eating my bandwidth and irritating the snot out of me. So, I think it's for Apple consumers. It's like, we did this because we love you and we don't care about anybody else's ad revenue. And why should they in that sense?
Along the same lines, there's a feature, intelligent tracking prevention. So like if you ever buy something online or shop for it, and then you notice you see these banner ads everywhere else you go on the internet, they're going to block that.
Yeah.
And they claim it's not about blocking ads. This is a quote. The web behaves like it always did, except you don't see the ads that everyone was trying to make money on.
And we still have your information, so that's okay for us.
This is not applying to me. I don't use Safari at all.
Neither do I.
No, I hated Safari, and now that I'm no longer running OS 10, I can hate Safari.
Yeah.
With much less passion.
Something I am kind of excited about is the Apple file system. So that they're replacing HFS, which is a probably 30+ year old file system with Apple file system. I don't know exactly how that's going to affect performance, except it has extremely fast file copying. It's like instant cloning of any file.
Awesome.
I don't does that work across partitions? I don't know. Like, does it work?
We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, so
it's funny because they basically rolled this out on all of the iPhones initially at an operating system update not too long ago.
Yeah, but since you couldn't really see the file system, it's hard to really benchmark that.
Yeah, it's also supposed to be more secure. So.
Yep. And 64-bit. Fully 64-bit. So it's got some good stuff. It's
9 quintillion files on a single volume.
That's gonna be a good thing.
Multi-key encryption, which is pretty crazy and pretty awesome. And the encryption is supposed to work across all of Apple's devices, and it's backwards compatible with HFS formatted drives. So it should be fairly
painless.
I knock on wood just, because you never want a file system to crack. Side note, before we move on, ZDNet did a price comparison, but they basically built out a system, or it was PC Gamer built out a system, comparing the cost of that system versus the cost of the iMac Pro. And the one they built up which included like a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti and Microsoft. It's funny they chose Microsoft Windows 7 Professional and LG Ultrafine 5K display. Came out at $313 cheaper than the base iMac Pro. So by Apple standards, that's practically undercutting by only being like
Yeah, right.
a couple $100 more. That's not much. And I think Apple's there was a point where you were paying an Apple tax, and then the Apple tax for the most part went away when you were looking at comparable system builds or comparable laptops. So I think Apple gets hammered for that probably more than they should. But this is this is a much less stylish system, and it's not as integrated, and you're still only saving $300.
Well, one area you will still be paying the Apple tax on is on their newly announced external graphics module, which is a $600 development kit at the moment,
Right.
That you can plug into any Mac, any MacBook, any iMac, and it gives you external graphics. So this comes with an integrated Radeon RX 580, which is a $300 graphics card.
Right.
Developer kit.
And well,
$600.
$300 for the GPU, $300 for the box is pretty reasonable because you can pick up a Thunderbolt toaster from Monoprice right now for $300.
What is it about Thunderbolt? It's so expensive. It does have a USB hub on it, so there's that.
All right, so I can use my $600 phone charging station.
So the reason this is mildly exciting is because they did announce metal for VR. So
you should hold back on your enthusiasm.
VR.
The reason this is mildly exciting.
Yes. Look, this box isn't even a consumer product yet. It's just a developer kit.
Right.
They're not releasing it. You can't even buy it unless you're a registered developer. So it's not that exciting yet. It's not even a product, really.
But the thing you're not excited about is the thing that's actually exciting, which is the fact that Apple's finally decided that it should pay attention to VR.
No, that's not even that. I am only mildly excited about this because
Okay.
there's plenty of VR happening on the PC, and it's great. Everything's fine. The water's fine. If Apple's going to join the pool, this is good news. But it's not like it's going to change the world. People can develop their VR app on Unity on the Mac now.
I was just thrilled that they didn't introduce their own proprietary VR headset. So, because what we really read now is a fourth or fifth competing VR standard for a very small user base.
No, they actually had the HTC Vive right on. It's right on their website now, and Steam VR now works on the Mac. So it's all good news. It's all good news. Like I say, it's not world changing. What I think there's a lot about this show that has me excited about the future.
Right.
And this is one of them. There's two other points we'll get to later.
Sorry.
And once these converge, we're going to have something interesting that I'll be excited about. But we're not there yet. All
Sorry,
right.
Dad.
So moving on, iOS 11 will be coming out this fall. A lot of interesting changes now. I'm actually kind of excited about iOS 11. I don't know if everyone else is, but little things like Apple Pay is now there's now person-to-person Apple Pay
In messages.
in messages. You're an Android guy, right?
I'm actually an iPhone guy
iOS?
and an Android guy.
I'm an
but
Android
mostly
guy.
iPhone.
Okay, so does not apply to you.
Yeah.
But if I needed to give you $20, I could send you a message.
Could you just Venmo me, man?
Yeah, we got Venmo, Snapchat, Facebook.
Yeah.
They're catching up to the competition.
Yeah, no, that's true. But this is integrated into messages. So it's
Yes.
just like, bam, we're texting. You say, can I have $20? Like Siri auto enters the reply, send him $20. I
Right.
tap it. You've got $20.
Which is awesome. But you already have this huge culture, mostly around millennials, that are completely happy with Venmo, and Venmo is the standard.
Yeah.
When did PayPal become Venmo?
PayPal didn't become Venmo. PayPal bought Venmo,
Yeah.
and then has made the CEO of PayPal was pretty serious in saying, like, most people don't know we own Venmo, and we're going to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Because they have a very different attitude towards Venmo than they do towards PayPal.
Right. I mean, but I have a PayPal account. I'm not even sure I have a Venmo account. I PayPal
You have
everybody.
to open up a Venmo account
It's so
separately.
handy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Come on in.
not
Bob.
as handy as messaging people money, though. I think this is going to be a little more handy. Apple Pay is hugely successful.
But you can only use it with Apple users and
Yeah.
iOS
No,
users?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, like I said, you don't matter. Doesn't matter. You're not getting any
That's
money.
why this won't matter.
The unfortunate thing is you will now have a new bank. Essentially, like
Right.
Apple's your bank. If you receive any money, it goes in your little Apple Bank, and you have to connect it to your bank account, give it your routing number,
Right.
so that you can transfer that money back out.
Good to know.
Yeah, so
that's what sketches me out about these
how much,
paying apps.
like all those guys though, Venmo, PayPal,
Yes.
they all have your money.
They need
and
to
they're
be
all,
audited.
They're all investing that money.
Oh, yeah.
Making money.
Oh, yeah.
Off the money you forgot you had there.
It's like, I wonder what their like how much of that money they actually have not tied up in investments. You
Yeah.
know,
Just enough.
just enough. The SEC will come knocking soon.
This is going to be huge. I think this is going to be a huge thing. Apple Pay, person to person. Mark my words, it's a big deal. I think people are going to use it. Siri has a new voice. That's actually, I called this one a year ago. I said they've got to change this voice because everybody hates it. Like everybody, not
Well,
it.
everybody hates Siri.
Everybody hates Siri.
And therefore, to give Siri a fresh start, they have to give Siri a new
it's got to
voice.
be a new person. Like you knew her. Let's say goodbye. This is the new Siri. And
They
the
should
new,
have done that with Apple Maps. Give it a new title. Apple's navigation system that's not a complete cluster pop.
Yeah, they should have, because no one knew that it got better. It was always Apple Maps.
Right.
But yeah, so Siri, I can't wait. I am a fan of voice synthesis. I've always, ever since like Dr. Spatzo on the Ad-Lib, or was it the Sound Blaster? I love mechanical voices and watching the evolution of this stuff. So hearing the new Siri was like, that's great. It sounds good. Have you heard it?
Not yet.
It's good. You should, like it's out there. Surprisingly, I can't find any developers who have posted movies of demoing the new voice, but it sounds human. It's great. Best I've heard, I think. Also, she translates now. So
Ooh,
Google
cool.
Translate, no longer necessary. You just say, hey, Siri, how do I say I'd like the cheeseburger in Chinese? And she'll say it.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's eFigs plus Chinese.
You know, I have a friend of mine who just got back recently from a bunch of time in Taiwan or China or both.
Mhm.
Bleeds together at this point. And it was amazing to hear him talk about everything he was able to do translating through Google and how critical it was to his experience over there. So I can only hope that Siri's translation is as effective.
Well, the voice synthesis is good.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the translation. Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing. But that's true. Like I spoke to some contractors when we were doing work on our house that only spoke Spanish, and it worked perfectly, and they were amazed by it.
Right.
And so it was like we had a moment, even though we didn't speak the same language, over this technology. It was nice.
Cool.
Camera is everything's now HEVC,
Makes
which
sense.
is like the evolution of JPEG, well, not JPEG, but H.264. And so they're doing stills and video using this technology, which isn't necessarily better quality, but it's better compression.
Yeah.
So they're going to take up a lot of the space on the devices. I'm excited for that.
H.265, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what they need in the Apple TV to be able to do 4K effectively. So maybe they're going to roll all this stuff out everywhere else and then roll it into the next generation Apple TV.
There's a lot of other stuff. AirPlay 2, multi-room native audio. Does this excite you? Would you control your audio? Do you control your audio from your phone?
Well,
at
I
home?
use Sonos for everything.
And
I mean, that was. Because this kind of makes me think about HomePod at this point.
Let's jump to it. HomePod.
HomePod. It's. I mean, the first thing I saw when I saw HomePod was, man, UE's engineers must be pissed, because when you take a look at UE's, not the Boom, but I can never remember the name of it because I
UE Ultimate Ears.
yeah, the Wonder Boom Portable. Like, this looks like a fat Wonder Boom Portable without the plus and minus on it.
No, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shannon had just looked at a bunch of the UE stuff, did a roundup for a Tech Thing short, talking about what the different models of the UE speakers do, and which one is the best one to buy for you. But this is, it's really kind of funny how they kind of sidled up to this, because this is a competitor to Amazon's Echo and Google's Home, and it's years behind Amazon Echo, and it's close to a year behind Google Home, or it feels like it's close to a year behind Google Home. But they're like, we're reinventing music in our homes.
I think this is the right approach because they can't compete with those.
No, I feel like
Assistants.
HomeKit's kind of a hot mess. I think all home automation at this point and Internet of at Internet of Shit is one of my favorite things to follow on Twitter, especially when they're having a cranky day on that one.
Yeah.
it's a curious. It's like it's 7 inches tall. It's got a 4-inch woofer, 7 beam-forming tweeter arrays. So, if you have a Sonos, you've probably run the system where you walk around. The Sonos bleats out noises, and you walk around your room, and the Sonos basically tunes its output for your room. It's a nice feature. So what they're saying with HomePod is they're going to basically automatically do this in real time in whatever room it's in. It's basically and wherever you're sitting is going to have this fantastic audio experience, right? It's it's beam forming. It's got 7 of these tweeters, 6 microphones. It's not supposed to be listening until it picks up, or the only thing it's listening for is "Hey Siri." All your encryption or all your communications are supposed to be encrypted. And then they're like, you've got a list of like sample questions in the rundown, like who is the drummer in this? What was the top song in 1983?
Well, this gets into the intelligence side of it, which has nothing to do with hardware. And
it does have a lot to do with hardware, because if the intelligence doesn't work, or if it doesn't, if it plays the wrong thing when you ask it to play the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, or to play, I don't know. I'm suddenly like not remembering, any band, play Trampled by Turtles, play, whatever song you want to hear, play Pink, play, if it doesn't play the right thing, then you're going to be really pissed off at the hardware, right? But
okay, sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes, but I think of that as Siri. I think of that as different. So I assume that this intelligence will work across different devices.
Yes.
If I'll be listening to Apple Music on my watch or my phone, I can still ask these same kind of questions.
Right.
And this depth of questioning has me excited. Like, I think this is surprisingly, like, I think that they couldn't pitch this as a Siri device that competes with the Echo and the Home, because Siri has such a bad reputation.
Right.
I think this kind of thing is what's going to improve Siri's reputation.
Which makes sense. Like, they're kind of side loading Siri into the Home, and they're side loading Home integration into the Home. That makes sense to me. It's it was interesting reading some of the people who were at the WWDC got invited to hear it, not in the middle of a show floor with 1,000 people.
And
everybody said, it sounds fantastic. No matter where I sit in the room, it sounds great. I'll be really curious to see what it sounds like when it actually ships. It has to sound at least as good as a Sonos, because they're charging $350. They also said that Apple Music has like 27 million subscribers now, which is amazing, because I don't know anybody that actually uses Apple Music.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. I know one person that uses Apple Music. I'll be really curious to hear it. I would also like to see Spotify integration built into it, because, I actually use Spotify. Are they going to be friendly to people who are using Google Play Music or Amazon Prime Music? I'll be very curious about that. I'll be very curious to hear it in the real world.
Yeah, me too. I have no doubt it will sound better than the competition. I mean, if maybe not Sonos, but the other assistants.
Right.
I think clearly
but it's
blow
also
them away.
people are like, it blows away Amazon Echo. Well, it's twice as much.
Yeah.
Amazon Echo, it's really mediocre at playing music, but playing music was a minor subset of what they were pitching Amazon Echo to do in your home.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, the Siri is a minor element of what they're pushing, for the HomePod, the horribly named HomePod.
I don't know.
I was watching people. It was really funny watching. I was watching the Twitter feed as the keynote was going on, and watching people argue about whether HomePod was an awesome name or an awful name was kind of hysterical.
It doesn't roll. Yeah, when you first hear it, it could be the kind of thing that a month from now it's like the Wii.
Yeah.
It's that thing.
Well, it sounds like it should be a tiny home or Apple's version of an RV or something.
Oh, I thought it was like a nickname. Like, I wanted to be named HomePod. You guys could call me. What up,
HomePod?
Yeah.
What's up, Bubba?
That's what I thought.
I can't even. I'm now gonna think HomePod every time you see you. I'm curious, right? It's got a really powerful processor. They certainly have the engineering talent to put together some amazing speakers.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be very curious to get one in and get ears. I'll have to buy one and get ears on it. But we also, it's like Sonos. Sonos works really, really well. Sonos sounds fantastic. It's got to be better than Sonos for it to be worth including in my home. And I'll be curious, because I still don't have an Amazon Echo in the house, because the last thing I need is my 4-year-old like firing up Rage Against the Machine at 4 a.m.
Got a cool kid.
I try.
I want to run down some of those questions you can ask Siri, because I think that's kind of cool. Like, who's the drummer in this? What's the top song in 1983? Play some lullabies in the baby room.
Rage
So
Against the Machine.
that's cool. You can play something next, so you don't have to cut off what you're currently playing. You can say, when was this recorded, or when was this released? It's some pretty in-depth
Good
knowledge.
intelligence there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. And as I say, I do hope that's coming across Siri. I just assume that it is. That's the kind of thing that I've been looking forward to from these.
I don't think you can
personal
pre-order
devices.
it yet.
No, I don't think so either. It comes out later this year. So the thing that has me most excited about iOS, I think, is ARKit. And this goes along with that VR development kit we were talking about earlier, the development possibility on Mac. It's now I haven't used it, but from what I could tell, watching very carefully many times to the video, the what you call SLAM, which is what does that stand for? Localization, and it's how AR devices actually look at the world and find out where they are and what the world looks like.
Surface localization?
We could look it up if we're all curious. But it's excellent. It's excellent. And it was running on an iPad that just has one camera. So I assumed that they would need the dual camera system in order to get any kind of depth detection like they have in the new iPhone Plus. But it didn't look like it. So they have incorporated augmented reality. Now it's a part of the development kit. You can run these apps as soon as you download the new SDK.
Right.
And you can develop apps using them. And as cool as it is to see some of these demos, there was one by Peter Jackson's new company, the Wingnut AR, that was really, really cool. I mean,
Right.
they pointed it at a table, and the table became an environment with buildings, spaceships flying around, missiles. Somebody actually a little character ran off the building, like dove off the edge of it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, not the building, but the table. Now, if that's real,
It's pretty cool.
if they're actually detecting the edge of surfaces and you're able to incorporate that into your game or whatever it is you're making, that's pretty awesome. And the actual SLAM, the actual mapping onto the real environment was dead on. I mean, it was good.
Wait, so this is just done with a camera? What is
Yeah,
this?
it's just using the iPad camera,
Wow.
and it wasn't jerking around, and the guy was moving, and it was stable, it was locked down. It was very impressive, and I'm excited not necessarily for the iPad apps. I mean, we've seen augmented reality stuff on phones for generations now. I
Right.
mean, not generations, but years.
A while.
Yeah, like many years, and it's never captured my attention for very long. Maybe somebody will make something great. I don't know, but what I think this is much more exciting for is where this technology is headed with Apple's long rumored AR goggles.
Right.
And this is an excellent way for them to get the development kit out to developers so that they can start researching and making things and making the mistakes early that they need to make in order to make interesting products long before they have the goggles ready for market. That's what I think is super cool about this, is that it gives us a head start. It gives developers a head start on making stuff. That's it for iOS. The iPad Pro was a new iPad Pro, bigger screen. Also in the AR potentially realm, 120 hertz screens, which is interesting. The PSVR runs 120 hertz screens. The Oculus only has 90 hertz, as is the Vive. But the fact that Apple's experimenting with 120 hertz displays, positive thing. They also clock down to 24 or 48, depending on what you're watching.
Right.
That's cool.
Interestingly, they didn't mention it clocks down to 60, which would be like the normal refresh rate. But then HomePod, and that was it. That was WWDC. Are you going to get a HomePod?
No.
Nothing about this made you want to think about going Apple.
Not really, no.
Yeah. You're probably
PCs
not
are
alone.
cheaper. I like tinkering and assembling.
Well, you can replace the RAM reportedly in the new iMacs, but you have to void your warranty and remove the glass.
Yeah, so no.
I did appreciate that the family plan iCloud accounts, accounts now are family plan enabled. So that's good. As someone who uses that was good news.
Nice.
Yeah. I think we got a word from Norman Chan, back from the dungeon.
Hey everybody, Norm here. I want to take this moment to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, and that is Rackspace. Did you know that Rackspace can help guide your migration to Amazon Web Services? With hundreds of innovations every year on AWS Cloud, many companies are seeking assistance from certified experts to meet their business outcomes. So whether you're planning to move or already use AWS, Rackspace's famed fanatical support for AWS is the answer for businesses facing these challenges. Rackspace has deep expertise and experience in public cloud transformation. With more than 770 AWS certifications and counting, they are a premier consulting partner certified in AWS DevOps as well as AWS marketing and commerce. They provide tooling and automation for account management, permissions, security, and best practices. So control your cloud costs and sleep well at night knowing that Rackspace will monitor your AWS 24/7, 365 days a year. Learn more at rackspace.com/yourcloud. Now back to the show.
I'm a pinball nerd. Pin. Just the right point. Finally, pinball. That makes me very happy. Okay, this does make me happy. There's a new pinball machine that has been announced, long rumored, developed by Steve Ritchie, famous pinball developer, designer of Star Trek: The Next Generation, No Fear, the new Star Trek game by Stern, AC/DC, Game of Thrones. Next game, Star Wars. Now,
Nice.
what's Star Wars? There've been what, like 3 other Star Wars pinball games? This one, what would you guess the new game would be about? Gunther.
The new game,
Yeah.
like storyline.
Which Star Wars is
The
the new
Rogue
Star
One
Wars?
stories.
Maybe. Like, that would be a good guess.
Yeah.
Because that's out. They have all the assets. That makes a lot of sense.
I still want it to be for A New Hope, but that's because,
Indeed, it
to
is
use
about
your
a
phrase,
New Hope.
that is my jam.
It is about a New Hope. It is about
HomePod.
a New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. It is an original trilogy pinball game. I'm not sure, why they did this. Given
Because they
it's-
didn't milk the franchise with.
I don't know. I mean, I can only imagine they just assume there's undying love for the original trilogy, and all the assets are out there. It doesn't require any waiting or clearance or special attention. It's like they're just like, yeah, use those assets. But it is original trilogy. I can't say I'm disappointed, and it looks good. It uses Stern's new platform, which is what do they call it, Spike 2 or something like that, which has an LCD monitor in the back glass, and it has a second LCD on the playfield. There's 2 versions of the game. One that allows you to, one that costs $2,000 more, and it has a warp ramp and an exploding Death Star, and some LEDs inside the Death Star.
The Death Star looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, the Death Star has 7 green LEDs on it that form the laser array.
Oh,
I
that's
imagine
pretty
those
cool.
come on and it feels like it's gonna fire. It looks kind of neat. The Pro has that. It just has a Death Star that doesn't explode.
What does something like this cost these days?
It starts around. I'm not sure what retail is, but
Okay.
I know the street prices for the Pro, which is like the lower end one,
Right.
starts at $5,400,
Okay.
and then you got $1,900 more for the premium, which is everything else.
Got it.
It's a lot of money, but I mean, these things, if you put them on location, they can make their money back in a year or less, depending
pretty amazing.
depending on
Wow.
the location. So that's cool. I
Just need
mean,
to park one outside of your house.
yeah, they don't make as much money if you buy them for home and put them on free play. But this game has been long rumored. Last Star Wars game that was ever made put a company out of business. So we're hoping for the best here. It was Williams. It was one of their last games. They made this whole new pinball platform called Pinball 2000, and they made Episode 1 because they thought, well, of course, as anyone would, that Episode 1 was going to be fantastic. And so they were in a secret room. They had bought this license that cost the company millions of dollars, and they designed this game behind closed doors. No one knew what the code word was or what was happening there. They put all the best people in the company behind it. The game was interesting, maybe not the best game ever, but it was a really interesting platform. Had this holographic effect where they put a TV above the glass so that it reflected and looked like things were happening on the playfield. But then it was Episode 1, and
So it flopped just because the movie sucked.
this character named Jar Jar was prominently featured, and it was not a good thing.
Oh,
And
that hurts.
So Williams ended up making slot machines for the rest of their existence. So we're hoping for the best here. They went safe with the original trilogy. Steve Ritchie is my favorite designer. So if you see this game on location, drop in $1 and check it out. We could. Anyone got any science news? I mean, Kishore usually does a moment of science, and he's not here to do so this week. I can tell you one thing that for whatever reason, this made the rounds and it fell on my radar. There was something that happened this past week that Einstein said we'd probably never see, but he predicted happened. But he just said we'd probably never actually be able to see it. And to his credit, telescopes weren't powerful enough to do so.
Right.
And that is a bending of light by a star. So a gigantic star we've now witnessed bent the light coming from another star so that when it passed nearby or within the trajectory of our vision, it made the other star appear to move out of its wake, all through a warping of space-time.
Dun, dun, dun.
Kishore, I hope I did that justice. That's your moment of science, even though you didn't get the music.
So Hubble has measured the deflection of starlight by a foreground object. So cool.
There you go. Actual scientific details.
Well, I cheated. I went to an article on the web.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Steam VR, now available on Mac, has just announced Tracking 2.0. And this is kind of interesting because it's going to mean bigger tracking volumes. Steam VR is Valve's HTC's solution for tracking VR devices. Right now, it only supports, and it has since it launched a year ago, it only supports the two, we call them lighthouses, but they're actually called, I think, base stations. And they're the laser emitters that you put up in the corners of your rooms, the cubes, and you turn them on, you plug them in, and they whir up and they emit laser beams. Those are detected by the sensors on the headset and the controllers. And right now, you can only use two of them, and they have to be, like 5 meters apart maximum. So there's a maximum tracking volume that you can create with these things. And the new one is going to use less components, and I think maybe half as many components, so it's going to be much cheaper. And they're not going to use the same technology where currently the base stations emit a separate frequency so that they can get in sync with one another. These new ones are going to embed that signal into the laser beams themselves. So it's high tech, right? But what's cool is that you'll be able to have multiple base stations, potentially as many as you like, so you can fill a house with them or a warehouse. And so it's going to be much more comparable to the more industrial commercial tracking solutions that we've seen, at companies that are doing like AR or VR experiences, like location-based things.
That's cool.
Like the Void and whatnot. Yes, it's very cool. There's a compatibility issue, so that Valve is suggesting everybody making devices right now embrace the new sensor, which will work with the old sensor as well as the new one. But the new will work with the new base station, but the new base stations will only work with the newer chips. So once Valve or the next version of Vive or whatever you have ships the next version base station, you're going to need these new chips. You're going to need these new sensors. They won't be backwards compatible with current controllers. So it's not a problem for existing users, but there's going to be a point in the future where things will be incompatible. However, you gotta move forward somehow, and you can't have you can't have a warehouse full of expensive base stations. So making them cheaper is a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. It's always tough. But I mean, that's something we didn't mention with the iOS 11 update is all of the 32-bit devices will no longer be supported. So I think it's like the last of the 5C and the 5, and at least maybe the iPad 4. There's so many of them at this point.
Yeah.
And then of course 32-bit apps.
They're just not going to work.
Yeah, 32-bit apps are going to be sunsetted effectively with iOS 11. So
yeah, I bet I have some of those. You can actually you can actually search on your phone which apps use 32-bit. So you can Google how to do that. You might lose functionality with some of your apps. I bet that's going to happen to me. good on Oculus. They are doing a really cool thing here in California, which is they're going to donate 100 VR headsets to 90 California libraries. So you'll be able to walk into your neighborhood library, if you're one of those 90, and pop on a headset and experience VR, which is wonderful.
That's smart.
Super cool. And they're seeding it with a bunch of educational apps like the Body VR, Google Earth, Apollo 11. Apollo 11, awesome app. It's long, like probably 30 minutes. But that's the first time I ever teared up in VR because it just felt like I was on that astronaut. I mean, on that rocket. Mars Odyssey, Through the Ages, it's all good. This is exciting, and I'm glad to see them doing this because, like we said, VR is expensive, and it's hard to justify the purchase at this point.
Do you really feel that it's hard to just, or do you feel like there's not enough games at this point, or?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, the problem is like one of the great games right now is Bridge Crew.
Sure.
$50, and you get 5 missions, plus this kind of generated mission, which is basically just a reworking of what you get in the campaigns. It's just not that much game.
Right.
I would like to. I look forward to when there are so many users that developers can justify the time and resources to make bigger games, and maybe we'll see some of those at E3 for all I know. But yeah, I don't think that the game experience. There's not a killer app yet, and it is very expensive. I mean, it's much more expensive, unless you're talking about PSVR.
Yeah, I mean, it's every time I put it on, I've been like, this is amazing, But I also, at this point, right, because I picked up a 1070 recently, I now have enough GPU horsepower. Now all I need is a $600 headset, and I can only imagine my wife's facial expression.
Yeah, I mean, PSVR is definitely affordable, but plus you can get the PS4 now for like $250. I don't know. It's slow going. I'm patient. I've justified buying all the platforms, but I understand when people say they can't.
Right.
I mean, it's just an expensive thing, especially if you don't have that monster computer. And if you have a friend who has VR headset, that's probably good enough. Just go over and use that for right now. But it's a lot of people who don't have access to the equipment, the money, or the friends, now they can find it in the library, and I hope that that's something that spreads across the country. Because I would love for more people to be able to try it, especially a proper system. Like what I'm concerned about is everyone, their first experience being, not to bust on it, but like one of the mobile platforms like Cardboard or even Gear VR, which has no positional tracking, and they're going to think, oh, I'm sick, I never want to do VR again. So that would be a very good thing if they could experience something that's properly head tracked with the fidelity of one of these PC solutions.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Testing this week. Hey, what have you guys been testing?
All right, Patrick, take it away.
I've been having a lot of fun with Dell sent out their new 8K Ultra Sharp 32 monitor.
8K.
8K.
What is that? What resolution is that?
A few minutes ago I could have said it. It's 7,400. You know what? I'll look it up because I suck.
I can look it up.
Well, to put it into context, it's 2 4K monitors, or essentially 16 1080p monitors, which makes it 7,680 by 4,320 pixels.
Very good.
It's running at 60. It was interesting because I plugged it into the original GPU I had, and it would run at 4K resolutions. And so I picked up the 1070. It's a very like early 4K experience in the fact that you need 2, DisplayPort 1.4 ports simultaneously connected to this monitor to get 60 hertz at 8K. On one hand, it's ridiculous, right? You're talking about, we were looking at 35 megapixel images, in per pixel, like completely fitting inside of the screen, with no scaling.
And what is the screen size?
Screen size it's a 32-inch screen.
Okay.
So it's 280 pixels per inch, which the more I used it, the less interested I was in this massive amount of real estate, but the fact that everything was so incredibly detailed, right? When you load the, you install the GPU, you load the drivers, you connect the monitor, and Windows basically sets it, when you go into the Windows display settings, it sets it for 300%. Because scaling, right? Because if you try to run it at 100%, your text is like 2 points high, maybe 2.5, 3 points high, and
but full res.
It's
Just get a magnifying
utterly
glass.
gorgeous. Yeah, get the giant like 8x magnifying glass. I could kind of read it with my face 4 inches from it.
Wow.
But when you're looking at I was thinking like, gosh, is this it's scaling well? It looks good. I'm running 7 apps simultaneously, and they all have a fair amount of real estate, and everything's upscaled, so I can actually read everything on them. The real killer, this is not for you can watch 1080p video on this. You can watch 4K video on this, but what this is really for. This is for video editors. This is for photographers, architects, engineers, people who can actually take advantage of having this ridiculous number of pixels.
And what's the price tag?
$5,000. We looked at, it's funny because we looked at a couple of like $200 1080p monitors a few weeks ago, and this is way at the other end of the scale. My personal favorite monitor right now is actually about to be closed out, Dell's U3415W, which is an ultra-wide monitor. 2560 by 1440 is a huge step up for most people, a great step up.
That's what I run on my editing system, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a huge improvement over 1080p, but it doesn't require you to spend all of the money if you want to do 3D gaming, or if you want to do 3D gaming with most of the settings turned up. So it's an interesting, like, part of me wanted to be like, this sucks, and mostly I was like, God. Color, because it's also it's running Premiere Color. It's set up to use an X-Rite colorimeter to do calibration. It's a very and it's now admittedly this was probably hand selected and checked before it was sent to me, but I don't think there are any dead pixels, but the pixels are so freaking small. I would have had to have like manually scanned the entire monitor with an eyepiece on to look at it.
Seriously, if there was a dead pixel stuck on,
Yeah.
you could see it, right? Like you'd be able to tell.
It would be very small.
Yeah.
280 pixels per inch.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pixels in
Huh.
an inch. That's a tiny ass pixel.
Wow.
I'm sure I could have, I didn't see any. I still haven't seen any. Mostly I'm still, I wanted to be like, yeah, this is an off the chart monitor for professionals that are doing all of these extremely visual applications. But the flip side of it was, much like the first time you have a high res display on your phone, I think quad HD displays are still tremendous overkill, like 400 pixels per inch. But man, like, that right around that 300 pixels per inch, you just can't see the pixels anymore, and everything looks just flawless.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you need at least a $400 GPU to drive it. You're going to be, it's an interesting monitor. It's way off the chart. I mean, when you look at Steam, right, most people are still barely gaming at 1080p. So this is not a gaming monitor. This is not a home theater monitor. Although you can do either one on there, it scales fantastic. I mean, like Rocket League, I was laughing.
You played Rocket League at 8K?
I did.
Wow.
Mostly I played it at 2560 by 1440 because that's what it was set to, and it looked fine.
Yeah.
It scaled fine. I ran it at 4K. I ran it at 8K.
There's a setting for 8K.
There was a setting for 8K. You don't need 8K. You're
Wow.
not gaining anything at 8K.
Bet that grass looks really good.
The grass looked pretty good at 2560 by 1440, and it looked pretty much the same. But it was starting the frame rate's starting to slow down a little bit at 4K, and by 8K there was a little bit of wobbliness in the image that I did not enjoy.
Well, even if the resolution isn't necessary for gaming,
Right.
I mean, a 32-inch monitor is difficult to game on to begin with, isn't it? It's just humongous, right in front of your face.
It doesn't feel that bad to me, but I've
Yeah.
also been using this, this 34-inch ultra-wide monitor for a while.
Okay.
And that's, I would say, instead of saying too big, I would say cinematic,
How far away from it? Like, is it on your desk?
probably arm's length.
Just arm's length?
How
Yeah.
far away from your mic?
Pretty far.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that. We reviewed that on Tech Thing this week, and it was pretty gorgeous.
I'm jealous. I'd like to see that. That's like a
Come up to
I don't-
Richmond.
I don't know.
I'd offer to bring it into the city, but it's a $5,000 monitor, and I really don't want to move it
No.
around too much. I want to get it back into the box and
Yeah.
back to Dell before I have to sell my truck to pay for it.
It's a taste of the future. Gunther,
Yeah.
you been testing anything?
No, not really.
Nothing? No,
I'm waiting for Threadripper motherboards and CPUs to come out.
Threadripper.
Soon.
What's that?
Eventually.
Threadripper is Ryzen's workstation grade
Right.
CPUs. 12 cores, 16 cores.
You're gonna get one?
I might,
Wow.
depending on the price point. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see. Got to wait for other people to test them, and then I'll do the same.
Any new camera tech you're excited about?
There's been a lot of camera tech coming out recently. The C200, Panasonic released a similar competitor. Sony lowered the price on their FS5, which is the camera we have here at Tested.
Mm-hmm.
So the C200 does 4K RAW, like a light codec version of their RAW, all at less than $8,000, which is expensive. but
Records that internally
yes,
onto what?
a CFast 2.0 card.
I don't even know what that is.
It's expensive.
Is
That's
it
what
like
is.
an SD card?
No. It kind of looks like a phone battery almost.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has SD in there as well, but you can't do the 4K
Got it.
recording to that, I
Interesting.
believe.
Huh.
So yeah, it's actually a really impressive camera because Canon normally has just been relying on the fact that they own a large portion of the market share and haven't really done anything super competitive.
Right.
But the C200 at the price point too is pretty freaking impressive. So if
Cool.
anyone wants to send us one to try out,
You would engage.
I
You'd
would
be
engage.
delighted.
Well, I have not been testing much myself except the printer bot upgrade, which is still underway. It's driving me nuts. I'm about to go insane with
Which printer bot?
Printer Bot Plus. I'm trying to upgrade the board to a G2 board,
Oh, wow.
and my God, is it not ready for prime time? So that's my ongoing.
That's a bummer because PrinterBot, like,
Nightmare.
I love the PrinterBot crew. I have one of their 3D printers at home.
I've had two printer bots and I've loved them out of the box, but this G2 upgrade, I mean, it's like it's tantalizing too. It's just killing me because it's making the motors go so fast and they're so quiet. It has this motion control that's just like transformed the sound of the machine and the speed of it. But it's just it's so unbaked. It's not ready for prime time. I mean, I had to Dremel my case in order to make it fit. The cables weren't compatible, and it's constantly crashing on me because it needs G-code. It's such a mess. It's driving me nuts. So hopefully I'll get that solved this week. That's what I've been testing. There are plenty of good stories up on tested.com. Gunther recently went, where was it with Sean? Where'd you go?
Boston.
To Boston.
Nice.
To shoot the Formlabs.
Formlabs has an office right next to MIT, basically.
There's a
And,
video up about the new SLS printer, along with some cool laser cutting projects up there. Patrick, where can people find you?
Techthing.com. That's the weekly show I do with Shannon Morse, where we get our geek on, and that's where we've talked about everything from how you can fight against ransomware in the last couple of weeks to Android business card scanners, the 8K monitor. We've done build videos around that. Like I got an AMD Ryzen 1800X. I paid out of pocket to buy that.
you did a build video for that?
I did a build video
I'll
for
check
that,
that
for our patrons, and we reviewed that on the show. Threadripper's out this summer. That's all we know. A bunch of the motherboards were announced at Computex in Taiwan, but we don't have an official release date on Threadripper. And I got to say, I know the system you're running for editing now. I would say just buy an AMD Ryzen 1800X.
Yeah.
Save yourself, it's going to be like an $850 processor for a Threadripper. And
Ooh.
even going to the 1800X is going to be such a
massive
mind-altering upgrade
I'm
compared
on
to
a
what you're
4-core
running.
now for everyone who doesn't know. It's
Yeah,
pretty
going to just going to the 1800X will probably leave you sort of twitching with joy.
Do any Ryzen motherboards come with a 10 gigabit connection?
None that I have seen yet,
Okay.
but I'm
'Cause
still
I'm really,
parsing through all the Computex motherboard announcements.
I'd love to future-proof a system.
Is that just a PCIe card you can pop
It's
in?
just a PCIe card. You're probably better just buying a PCIe, because by the time you're ready to put a 10 gigabit card in there, there'll probably be like 25 gigabit Ethernet in the place you're working at,
point.
which is complete and idle speculation on my part. But the other thing the show I do pretty regularly is AVXL with Robert Heron, and we're going to be talking about HomePod this week and the tvOS stuff that they didn't talk about, and basically we talk about home theater and audio and music and and getting the best out of your home entertainment experiments.
And Tech Thing is TEK.
TEKTHING.
Excellent show.
Thank you.
I'm a patron.
Thank you.
That'll do it for this week. We'll look forward to chatting with you next week, where, with any luck, Kishore will be back. And I think that'll be Norm's last week on his glorious honeymoon throughout Europe.
I hope he brings back photos. Slides. I want to bring back slides.
Slideshow presentation.
He has been posting some of his slides to Twitter, and I recommend checking them out. He found a pretty awesome, what even was the theme of the showing? He went to a gallery of original paintings of dinosaurs from children's books or something like that.
Nice.
Neat stuff. But yeah, have a good time out there, Norm. I know you're listening to this podcast on your honeymoon. For now, we have an outro by Micro Apple.
Hi there, I didn't see you. Test it.
I think it warrants an Inception bump.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Test it.
That's the energy I bring to this podcast.